This is On the Flywheel, a podcast where each week we talk to entrepreneurs and professionals about the practical things they do to build and keep momentum in their personal and professional lives. Hello and welcome to On the Flywheel. I'm your host, Jonathan Mart, Flywheel Consulting, and today I'm excited to have on the podcast Jessica Hart of Hart Consulting. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Sure, thanks for having me.
So the first thing I like to do is always have guests kind of give us a little bit of their background from a career perspective and talk to us about how they got where they are today.
Yeah, man. I guess a little bit about me and background would be that I grew up in Petaluma, California, for everyone that doesn't know where that is. 45 minutes north of the Golden Gate Bridge. In terms of getting into my career and such, is that I ended up going to Sac State, which is, kind of close to this space. And through that, I was getting a business degree, like every kid that goes to college, right? Like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, so I'm going to get a business degree.
I will say the other one they say is psychology degree, and that's a business degree is a much more useful thing to get if you don't know what you want.
Fair. So, applied for that degree. They're like, oh, well, what, concentration do you want? You have to take the classes before you pick it. And I can tell you right now, I did not want to be the police of people in the workplace, which is what I thought HR was. So if you think that too, fair. Outside of that, I was an employee myself that had situations in small to medium-sized business market that, I didn't have an HR person to talk to. Mm-hmm. And through that, I also learned that there are a lot of business owners out there that don't know what they don't know from an HR perspective, and it doesn't matter if you don't know it; it still is illegal.
Right,
so,
still a law. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't just post like the speed limit everywhere for all the laws,
right.
For California things or federal things. All that to say is that through an experience where that went wrong and they got it fixed and all the things, I got to see how expensive it is for litigation and how expensive it is for all these things. And I was 19 seeing it all as an employee. And, fast forward, I ended up getting into HR because I didn't like the fact that when you're an employee and you can't say it to someone and then you try to say it to someone, basically what I learned in school is that, you got to pay meal premiums and overtime and these basic things.
Yeah.
And so I tried to share that with the business owner and they're like, nope, we don't do that here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so I know what it feels like to be the employee that's just running against the wall, no, this is a big deal and I'm just trying to help you. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't land anywhere. So that got me into HR.
Okay. From
that experience, I've seen what it looks like to go to the DOL. I know what it's like to be in the courtroom.
And DOL is?
Department of Labor.
Okay.
I know all of that. And it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And especially when you have an employee just trying to tell you to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I got into HR. I ended up doing HR with Target, opening a lot of stores, mass expansion, succession planning, all that crazy stuff. I was recruited by Heineken when Heineken bought the Lagunitas Brewing Company. Went through that whole craziness of post-merger M&A with them, and then I ended up launching my business.
Very nice. So tell us about your business then. What are you doing for folks?
I work with small to medium-sized businesses. They can be scaling or turnaround type situations where I help them either implement or audit their HR. So a lot of times, they grow fast and they don't know what they don't know, and then there's a lot of things kind of down the road that you got to kind of unmelt the ball of wax is what I say. And what I do with those individuals is that a lot of these businesses don't need me full-time, right? 15 employees, 50 employees, maybe 75, right? It can be a range, and it's kind of auditing where you're at, getting you compliant with the things, and then kind of moving into more of a HR business partner, fractional head of HR role for these organizations so that we keep on a people strategy perspective as opposed to, fire drill madness. Because, they don't need someone with my skill set 100% of the time.
Right.
That's the reality.
When do you think a company can justify having a full-time HR person?
I think it depends on complexity first and then employee size second. So when I say complexity, I'm talking about, do you have hourly and salaried workers, right? Some people punch in, punch out, some people don't. Do you have multiple sites? Do you have multiple states that you're in? Do you also have people that aren't just working in an office, but you've got manufacturing, you've got a restaurant, you've got a vineyard, you've got right? Whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got people working in different sites that way or different physical locations, that's where it gets complex from an HR and a people perspective. And then when you go into the numbers of employees, I mean, in the state of California, you got 5 employees, you've got a leave option that comes into play. And businesses that have 5 employees, they have no idea how to handle the leave law of California. I tell you that because businesses that are thousands, they hire attorneys to handle that part, you know? Like, it's just not fair. So in a long roundabout way, the other piece is if payroll is handled under finance, you really don't need an HR person until probably 30 to 50 employees or maybe more.
Okay. And when we're saying HR person, I should clarify that question, are we talking about someone that's just like processing payroll, or we're talking like someone that's staying up to date with what's going on in HR world?
Yeah, I would say job title, right, would be HR generalist.
Okay.
I don't think that you need a specific person just running payroll. I think that you can get by with the generalist at like the 50 to 70 mark.
Yeah, I guess what I was trying to say was just the kind of person that's just doing the transactions of HR, you know, like new hire paperwork and stuff like that.
Right, and
versus,
like onboarding.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. What the distinction of what it means to have, as opposed to just like their manager doing it or the owner of the business doing that kind of stuff, you know, at what point, that inflection point where you're getting someone that actually knows HR and stays up to date with it.
Yeah, that would probably, I mean, in the state of California, you want to resource either external or internal, right? Somewhere at 5+ employees. But if you're going to hire someone just to dance in the lane of HR specifically, right, and take that off everyone's plate, I'd say in California somewhere around 30 or more.
Okay. That's, I think that's helpful for people to know. I mean, it's really hard as someone who comes from helping run a family business. You know, it is really hard to stay up to date on what's happening in the world. California, it's insane. So how are you staying up to date on it? How is there just a newsletter I'm not getting?
Fair. I like to say HR is like a language. It's like you got to go full immersion.
Yeah.
And then you just got to like keep practicing it to stay up to date. But in reality, I pay to be a member of the Society for Human Resource Management. It's it's a book of knowledge. There's like 2 leading like characters, right? That and HRCI.
Okay.
So I align with the SHRM module, which means that I pay to be a member with them. I also have access to all their resources. As an individual, I'm very interested in lobbying on the employer side. Okay. So I like to keep up to date and go to like active legislation in Sacramento, and I like to be a part of lobby groups and interest groups to hear what are impacting different businesses so that I can hear the mess before the mess happens.
Well, sometimes it still happens.
Yeah. I mean, prime example would be there was a Senate bill in California that was coming out about the hidden fees. Everyone was freaking out about hidden fees. And the hidden fees thing was literally came out of the Taylor Swift problem with Ticketmaster.
Right.
Because people were trying to buy tickets with Ticketmaster, and then there were all these hidden fees.
Yeah, wasn't this also affecting folks like Comcast when they like throw a bunch of random stuff on the bottom of your bill that you weren't expecting and stuff like that?
I literally broke up with Comcast because of that damn broadcast fee. It's like, it's $25. Why?
Yeah.
I literally have the 10 channel thing, and we use we use the website. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Use Wi-Fi. But yeah, so that was what it was targeted for. But it was also including restaurants and all these other things. Now, the reason why a lot of my clients freaked out about that, which is why I stayed up to date on that, is because when you talk about hidden fees, that included stuff on the restaurant side like auto gratuity on tables of 6 or more. That included things like a service charge when you rent out a banquet hall. Like these things that
that I don't like as a consumer personally.
Yeah, which is fine. But it also it never lines up the right way.
100%. Someone always gets caught in the crossfire.
Well, why would you have something go into effect on July 1 on a Monday?
Yeah.
Why would, have you ever worked in a business before? You don't hit people with a ton of bricks on a Monday.
Yeah.
In the middle of the summer. Yeah,
that's fair. And I also wonder, it's just such an interesting thing that laws can get passed that affect all these businesses, but there's no notice that goes out, right? Does every business get contacted or anything like that? You're just expected to stay up to date with what's going on.
Yeah. So for me, I'm a networking machine.
I know you are, yes.
I have to have lawyers in my phone at all times and be friendly with them, that they want me to hear what, you know what I mean, what's going on, because then I can give free tips to my clients.
So you're working them for information.
Always. Always.
That's good. So I want to get into two things. One is it's not often that I get to sit down and talk to an HR professional, and and especially someone that works with multiple businesses. And then second, I want to talk after that, maybe get in a little bit into just like the journey of starting your own business, because you are a relatively new business owner yourself, and that's kind of an exciting journey. On the HR side of things, I mean, what are the common mistakes that you're seeing businesses, like small businesses, make when it comes to HR?
Wage and hour. You're not cut. Everyone thinks, and I'm trying everyone. This is going to hit everyone. Okay, your payroll provider is not meant to pay people correctly.
Interesting. Okay.
You think it is, right? It makes sense. I got a payroll provider, right? What? The ADPs, the Gustos, maybe it's Gusto or Gusto, I don't really remember how to pronounce it. You've got the High Bobs, you've got, Bamboo HR. There's plenty, okay?
Right.
It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with that brand. They are supposed to pay people. They are not supposed to pay people correctly.
Okay, explain what you mean.
So they hit send on the money.
Right.
Okay? That's it. That is their job. You as the employer are meant to set it up correctly so that it pays correctly with your city and state law.
Okay.
So, for example, I can't remember. Is your audience mostly California?
Yes.
Predominantly?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
So, California, I'll be like super specific. California has a law that says, hey, if you work an 8-hour day, by the 5th hour, when it starts, not when it ends, you have to clock out for an uninterrupted 30-minute break. Okay?
Right. Yep.
So if you only have a payroll solution, but you don't have a timekeeping solution, then the payroll doesn't know that you owe that person 1 hour of their wages because they didn't take their lunch at the right time, because those systems aren't talking to each other.
Interesting. Okay.
So as an employer, you're already out of compliance and have a wage and hour issue that is free to file with the DOL, right, Department of Labor, for your employee to come and get money from you.
Right. And
that compounds with interest every day, maxing out at 30 days. So it's not cheap, right?
No, that stuff's a big deal.
And so from an employer perspective, you think, oh, we got a payroll solution, they're going to pay people correctly, we're good.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's a gotcha.
No, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, that is true that it is just because you got to make sure that people could be even punching and using a time clock correctly, but it doesn't mean that they're actually taking breaks when they're supposed to.
Right.
The one I've seen people get for especially is people that have to do some sort of like the way where the time clock is located, they have to like change or do some kind of thing for the business before they even punch in, and it's like, no, actually they're supposed to be punching in before they lift a finger for anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a court case that happened. Again, I nerd out on this stuff, right?
That's good. I'm glad there's someone. It's just like when I go to the hospital or go to the doctor's office, I'm so glad that there's doctors, because it's like, this is not for me.
Yeah, that's not for me either.
Yeah.
I have found my calling.
That's
I will
beautiful.
not be
That's
going
great.
to med school anytime soon. But there is a lawsuit that you can Google, right? It's with Apple. And basically there's a security thing with Apple where the employees had to line up, and they had to line up to go, kind of like TSA, go through TSA before you get to work. Mm-hmm. And because they couldn't clock in until going through that security thing to clock in, there was this lawsuit that said, like, oh no, by the way, you need to pay them because they're standing in line. The only reason they're not working is because you put the security guards there to stop them from working.
Yeah,
so you need to pay them for being in the line. Like, that's a real thing.
I kind of get it.
Yeah.
I kind of get it, But it's also so hard as an employer to think of every edge case.
You're not going to.
Like that's what's really trouble about it. Even if you're the most well-intentioned, you do everything with the utmost integrity. It's just so easy to miss some of those things.
Well, and I personally believe that like you said, I nerd out on these things, right? It's my full-time job to nerd out on these things.
Yeah.
Okay? I love it. Not everyone's as weird as me. Right? Like,
Well,
I don't want to read these things.
I would say everyone's probably equally weird, just about other things.
Right, they've got other things. So, like, you can't be weird about two things.
Exactly.
Right? So, like, if I know that about humans, then I also can say that it's probably not realistic for someone to be weird about their own thing, but also make space to keep up with the HR stuff.
Well, that's always what's interesting, too, as someone who's more of a business consultant. I always tell people, like, lots of business owners are good at the thing they do. They're not great at necessarily the business side of it.
Right.
Right? You know, and same with the HR. Like, if they're great at, let's just say, running a landscaping business or running a restaurant or something, that the likelihood of them being good at a bunch of other things is that takes to run your business is pretty low.
Yeah.
You know.
100%.
So, all right. So, any other big gaps that you see for folks besides kind of the time and labor stuff?
You know, the obvious is handbooks. And I think that what is surprising for a lot of people is they're like, oh, well, we have at-will employment. Okay, but did you tell them that? Because you have to prove that you told them that. So, like, that should be in a handbook. That should be an offer letter. That could be in something signed.
Yeah.
That you communicated that. Because that's number one important, too. In terms of, like, handbook policy, all those changes, my rule of thumb is if it's not updated within 18 months, I don't read it. I give my clients new ones.
Really?
Like, I just know it's old. It's going to cost you way more money for me to read this thing. We just do a new one. Scrap it. We move on.
Man, you have to keep updating it that frequently.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this year alone, right? Like, an example would be sick time. An example would be reproductive loss leave. Like, all of these different things that come into play.
And just making sure that your handbook's covering everything that needs to be. Because it's your way of basically communicating expectations to employees.
Right. It's hey, this is how we do things here. But then you actually have to do the things here. You
well,
know?
Yeah, that's the tricky part, too, right? Is that once it's there, once you tell them something, then you actually have to do what you're saying. Because that's also bad. You could have a great handbook, and then if you're not actually doing what's in your handbook, that also causes problems.
Yeah, just in my world, they call it inconsistencies. That's the buzzword.
So, okay, I want one quick story, if you have one, story time about, like, the craziest thing that you've seen from an HR perspective that you're able to share.
I don't know if I'm allowed to share a lot of it.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
That's fine.
If I whisper. No.
I wasn't sure even if you weren't naming names or something, if you could or not.
I think that my company is so new that maybe in a year we can have story time.
Fair enough. Or maybe from previous. Anyway, I'm not pushing you for it, so it's fine. Well, let's talk about your new company then.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how's that? What inspired you to start your business first off? To go from living the corporate life to saying I want to do my own thing.
You know, it's kind of two lanes, right? Like I felt like in post-merger M&A, right? Like, you know that there are redundancies, 100%. Anyone that tells me that a business buys another business and doesn't do a layoff is lying.
Sure.
Right? You can't guarantee that. You just can't.
No.
Because you just acquired a business that has all the people doing similar things or whatever, right, than what you have. And that's not a shot fired. That's just reality.
Yeah.
And so I think that part of it in my brain was I loved where I was at, adored it, like nothing but positive things to say. And at the same time, I could know that we just kept laying people off and cutting teams and getting smaller. And at the same time, there's only a part in post-merger M&A where the strategy moves too, right? So you're going to go from having HR strategy on site to it going to the headquarters. Well, in my experience, like I knew I don't want to move to that headquarters. I have a young child, like my parents are close in town, they get to be very involved in my son's life. That just wasn't part of it. So that kind of helps me from a mental perspective. But also, when I was trying to find people with my experience to come and work where I was working, you couldn't. We were poaching talent from cannabis often to get into the alcohol industry because it's similar in nature of just wildness, right? And so with that, I also knew that there was a spot in the market for my services for businesses that didn't have full-time HR.
Okay.
So it was kind of a, we got to figure it out while also, like, you know, living. Like, you know, it was just kind of bizarre. I mean, looking back, I would not launch a business in Q4 ever.
Yeah, sure.
Probably not a good idea. And I say that because a lot of businesses, as you know, right, you start pulling back spending. What do we need to do to meet at year-end numbers? All of that kind of stuff.
Plus you throw in the holidays, and it's just like it's not a priority to go spend money on consultants.
Right. But it was really exciting because also at the same time, I called one person in my phone, like literally the day that I was like, all right, this is going to happen. And within 3 days, they were like, all right, this is what the board has approved you for. I didn't even have my costing structure set up. Like, I had no idea. I knew that because we worked together in the past that it would work out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they knew what I could do.
Sure.
I didn't have a pitch. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have a business account. Like, I had none of these things. I was just like, this is what we're going to do. And then they're like, great. I can spend X. You ready? I'm like, sure.
Yeah. Well, that comes down to like fake it till you make it. Not that you don't have the skills, but also I've never done this thing in this way before, and I'm just I guess I'm figuring it out now.
Right. And what was really cool about it is it's someone that I obviously worked with in the past, supported in the past. So they're like, I need you to do org design. I need you to figure out what's going on in the structure. It's a business. It's fourth generation that got people XYZ titles that just don't make sense, and I just want you to talk to the team and understand from an OD perspective what you can do. And
I'm assuming that's organizational design.
Yes, sorry. Okay. Me and my jargon.
Yeah.
Everything's shorthand.
For the people.
For the people.
For the people.
Yes. And so that was fun because it was also a 300 plus employee organization, so it wasn't like a no-go, like a nobody client.
Right.
And so that really stoked my confidence, right?
Yeah. You got a nice anchor, kind of an anchor client right off the bat. That's awesome. Yeah. So how have you? So you're going out. You were lucky to have kind of a client out of the gate. How have you gone about growing your business in the intervening time?
Yeah, I am a huge advocate for just talking to people. And so I just went into my LinkedIn. I'm not even joking. And I was like, all right, what industry do I want to work on? Who do I want to support? I really feel like managing people is hard as it is, and then throw alcohol into the mix, right? Just freaking disaster.
Are alcohol companies and restaurant? I assume there's a lot of drinking happening at those places
all the time, and they're gonna tell you they don't. Yes, they do. And the thing is it a drink that you have then, for example, you can have a bar, right? Well, if you're have a patron that's a regular at the bar, do you think your bartender is ringing them up for every single drink? Are they? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, but they're getting a good tip, so I don't know. Right? That's just an example. Yeah. Another example would be, are they going to take a shot with them? Maybe. Are they buddies now? Probably. Right? They've been getting tips for months.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Right? I'm thinking of the extremes for the point of the illustration, but there's that. There's the fact that when you manufacture beer, you test it in 4 different spots before it goes, right? You have to make sure that it's okay in different sections. So you've got people that are technically supposed to have a sip.
Right.
Sure, a sip. But the sample glass is a 4-ouncer. But they're supposed to have a sip. Right. You see what I mean? So it's just an interesting space to play, and we have to remember that alcoholism is a disability in all 50 states.
Right.
Did you make the disability? I don't know. Right? There's a lot of interesting things and ways to cut that pie.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But
all things I've never considered. Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah.
So to answer your question, I was like, okay, this at least I know it's a high risk, high reward business. It's something that I directly am passionate about. I love how different varietals come out for wine. I love the different tastings of beer. I love the people in the industry. So many personalities, right, when you get into restaurants. And it's just, the common thread was that there was alcohol somewhere in the workplace for me. Mm-hmm. And so then I went to my LinkedIn to answer your question and was like, all right, who works at a brewery? I literally typed in brewery.
Yeah.
And would just message people the same message. I'm not even gonna lie, it's hysterical. I was just like, hey, I've launched my new thing, would love to catch up with you. Would you want to do a 30-minute coffee chat this week or next? Just boom. I would sit there, I'd set an alarm for 30 minutes and just boom, 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 just freaking hammering it out, okay? And then I'd walk the dog. And then I'd come back and I'd have responses. And it didn't matter that I didn't have 50 responses if I sent 50 messages.
Right.
It mattered that I had 2, and I got so amped.
Yeah.
And I just kept doing that over and over. over and over again. And then I would track the relationships, and I would follow up with them and see how they were doing and start commenting on their LinkedIn. And it was just like staying in my current wheelhouse. And then from there, I've been able to start going to different networking groups and talking about what I'm doing. And what I also recommend when you're doing this kind of like hustle mode of just so many conversations, you start realizing how to pitch yourself to people that you're not pitching to. Right? They weren't decision makers. They weren't people that were going to be clients. They were just people that I knew that worked in the industry that I wanted to talk to.
Yeah.
And then organically, I built my whole business on referrals. And it's been great so far. Like one of my key clients that I have right now literally came from someone that I met randomly on a different networking website that I talked with them about doing HR for them, and then they decided to not hire people, so they didn't need the HR support, but then they referred me into their client instead.
Wow.
All right, we didn't even work together. You get what I mean? Like, it's just
well, that is the power I've found of like having conversations and networking and getting to know people, is that referrals often come from places you least expect, right? And there's something like, you may be going to talk to someone that you think can't offer you anything, but maybe when you have a conversation with them, they like you establish credibility with them, and actually they do have something you could help with, or they know someone that would be that you could work with, and you just never know about those things. That's why it's so critical to just get out and talk to people a lot.
Yeah, and I think that so I have these Post-it notes on my desk, and
you're a Post-it note person.
I am, and they're all these different colors, and they kind of like fan up.
Do the colors mean anything? No. Okay.
Absolutely no rhyme or reason with the colors.
Okay.
But
I just had to gauge how, where the level of like insanity was with the Post-it notes.
It's probably high. Just jump there. But one of my Post-it notes says "Givers get," and that's it. Like very simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I going to give them my time? Am I going to talk about something that they didn't even know about, and then they're going to leave with something educational? Like, for me, I know that I add value to whatever business I support.
Yeah.
But I will not be the person that's like knocking on your door and a crazy salesperson. No. Because also HR is not like that. Like,
right.
It takes a long time, and that's where I've also been able to kind of sit in the business, right, of building it, is that I'm asking people to show me their skeletons. Talk to me about their people. Trust me with everyone's socials.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't just jump in and get access like that. You gotta be okay with the time and the dance.
Yeah, I'm finding that in my business too, that like in order for me to help people, they have to be vulnerable about like what's wrong with their business, and then be willing to change. And those things can both be very difficult, especially when you start talking about finances, and if you're trying to make an improvement, and like then you have to be vulnerable about, this is how much I make on this is how much this thing costs me, this is what I'm spending, but and so it takes time to build a trust relationship with them, for sure.
Which is why I dig so deep into like current people that I know. Because if current people know me, they already know, like, trust me, we're already there, so then they can refer me in to whomever has that problem, and then I have an instant.
Yeah, that's great. That's great insight. That's also been the most productive avenue for me for referrals as well, is people I knew, or people I knew working with them, or people I knew recommending me to someone. Because it's if you've there's a whole, I'm in BNI, which is the networking group, and they have they call it the VCP process, which is visibility, credibility, and then I think it's profitability. But basically, you have to become. I can't remember what the P stands for, but basically, you become visible to someone, right? That's just getting out and talking to people. That's sending 1,000 LinkedIn messages, and then there's the credibility. As you work on the relationship, you become credible with them, and then they want to at the end they want to send you business. Yeah.
Well, and I think also it's like, even when I meet new people, I try to add them to LinkedIn right away, because I know I post 3 to 5 times a week on LinkedIn.
You do. You are probably, outside of like public figures, you're probably the most active person I have on LinkedIn, which is great. You are my goal.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know if that means, does that mean insanity high?
No. I think no. That's just like, that's good. You're working it the way you should. I think it's great.
I try to be very specific on what I share. So I appreciate that feedback. I just think that, that way, from a credibility standpoint, I am using a system and a software, LinkedIn, that they already use, right? And they can decide to follow me or not, hide me or not. It's not going to stop my confidence because I have no idea.
It's true.
So I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
And what it helps with is that you start posting things that people didn't think about, right? They're learning, whatever. And it builds credibility for that referral when they hear that specific thing down the road.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here to make a commission on a quick sale and a handbook flip.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing when people starting out their businesses don't realize is like, and I knew that going into it, but even I caught myself a few times, like, don't go into relationships or meeting new people trying to make a sale.
No.
Because that's not, talking about going into that visibility and then credibility process, that's not how you build credibility, because immediately people just aren't going to want anything to do with it. So I went back and looked at some of my old emails when I was first sending them, and I was way too sales pitchy. Instead of just, hey, I'd like to connect and learn about you and your business, it was more like, hey, these are the things I can do and all that kind of stuff. And that, that immediately, then people are like, oh, he definitely wants to sell me something.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've had more success when it's just been about building a relationship with people.
Fair. Yeah.
So we are getting close to the end of our time, but I want to ask you a couple more questions about your business real quick. One is, what has been like what's been your biggest challenge as you've been starting your business?
There's an overwhelming amount of software systems and solutions out there, and it's like analysis paralysis.
Do you know who you should talk to?
Who?
Me. I might be able to help you with that.
Fair. But it's bonkers, right?
Is, yeah.
And I don't know if it's because we live right by Silicon Valley, and it's, so maybe I'm part of their, like, recruitment test portal, right? Of,
they got you sucked in,
Yeah, but it's like, oh my God, another sponsored post about whatever.
Yeah. No, that is challenging, and actually I see a lot of small business owners run into that. Like, I was just telling you before the meeting, working with someone to like select some shop management software, and they're like, they're not technical, right? Yeah. They're really good at running their shop and doing the work, and they have great reviews and all that kind of stuff. And then B, they just don't have the time. Right? They're like, I have no idea where to start.
Like, why should I shop this?
Yeah.
Why should I pretend? That's how my clients feel when they have me vet their workers' comp or have me vet their benefits broker or whomever. It's just like, you don't know what questions to ask.
That's exactly. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't know if they're the salesperson is just feeding you a bunch of crap. All these kinds of things. You don't know if that's going to be as good as you think it is, and it just takes. It's just like a lot of work to.
The used car salesman has come to everything.
Oh, it is bad. I have a rule of thumb that if a software company is doing a hard sell to me, I just don't even. I'm not going to use them because it's just like it's a cultural thing. Like I don't want to give money to someone that is just like trying so hard to sell me. They call every single day, right? They send you 5,000 emails. They only want to give you information if you get on a call with them and do a demo with them. I'm like, oh my God.
But you know what that tells me? They have zero clients.
They have
way too much time on their hands.
That absolutely could be true, but it's incentivized because they just those sales guys for software companies just throw them out and say, hey, you go build a book of business. You just gotta grind and like talk to all these people, and it's just, I mean, on their end, it's probably a brutal thing to do, and I would never want to be a software salesperson.
Not a fan.
Yeah, not at all. So what's been the best thing about starting your own business?
The best thing is the flexibility. That, and what I mean by that is because I have a little one, right? Okay. Well, so I'm a morning person. I get up at 4:45. Okay. Every day. I am downstairs in my house, like, ready to roll. Coffee is made 5:30.
Okay, wow.
And
what time are you going to bed? I'm curious.
8:30 to 9. Okay. Somewhere in that window.
Yeah, that's the only way you can do that and be successful unless you're, insane.
Or on Can I say that on here?
I mean,
I don't do
sure.
that, but it's like who you have to sleep.
Yeah.
So with that, it's like, remember, I work in the industry, so like there's all sorts of things that come up. Anyone that's worked in restaurants will understand what I mean by that. But back to what I was talking about is that I'm up 4:45. 5:30, I've got the coffee. I am checking my email by 6. I respond to all of my clients, or I'm working on a project by 6. Between that time, then I'm in the gym. 6 to 7, always in the gym, and then I go into mom mode. And so it's really cool because I can respond to people's emails whenever I want to. I get to have that morning with my son. I get him to preschool, and then I get to jump into client mode again.
Mm.
Right? If I want to, like, I work until probably 4 o'clock or so, maybe 4:30 every day,
Mm-hmm.
and then I get to pick up my son for preschool, and then we get to go into family time again.
Yeah.
Where when I was in corporate world, I was still doing those things, except I would pick him up, he would go home, my husband would tag in, and then I'd go back to my email
Mm-hmm.
until at least 6:30, or my son was at my parents' house, so I could work until 6:30.
Mm.
I also was on a plane all the time, back and forth to Chicago, all the time.
Really?
Yep. And it's just like we only sleep trained our son so hard so that he'd be predictable, so that I could leave confidently knowing these things. So flexibility.
Yeah. No, that's great. That is a great point. I do see sometimes that people do get trapped in their business, though, so you definitely have to be intentional about setting those boundaries and those constraints for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the bonus questions because we are running to the end of time, and the first one I always like to ask people is, what's a book or books that you recommend or gift the most to people?
Hunter-gatherer parent.
All right, what is that about? I assume it's about parenting.
Yeah, it's about parenting, but it's a woman that lives in San Francisco that took her 2-year-old into all these ancient areas. So, like, she goes into Mexico, she goes into Antarctica, she lives with people in Africa, like these tribes, right? And she talks about how when you see their children, they're just super helpful.
Mm.
And why are they helpful? Like, she goes on a hunt with her child, and like she walks through this whole process of like, when you allow risky play and you allow kids to play with you, they become contributing members of society with you in the house. An example that she gave that has worked really well with my kid, which is why I give this book, is that like, if you're doing the dishes and your son or daughter comes into the kitchen and you're like, get out of the kitchen, I need to do dishes, your kid's never going to ask you to help with the dishes. Your kid's never going to help with the dishes because you just told them they're not allowed in there.
Yeah.
So then they're going to grow up and be a kid that never helps with the dishes.
Yeah.
You did that.
It's true.
The book is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's based in like these very ancient principles that I'll leave you with the fact of like, you and I talk to our parents, and our parents are like, back in my day, it was different, and we parented like this, and all these things. Well, fair. Well, we have no idea how effed up all the generations are from it because we change every generation on how we parent.
True.
And so taking it into 20,000 year, this is how they parent pieces is kind of cool.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to check out that book. Just based on your anecdote, I do find that it is very helpful to like encourage. Not my daughter's a little young, but my son, who's around the same age as yours, is when he wants to help. Yeah, let's figure out how you can help and do something. Yeah. Because they want to be there and engaged, and he ends up being like way more helpful and when we do that. So that's a great point. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
The other thing I like to ask people is, if you give people one piece of advice on a billboard over the freeway, what would it be?
Givers get. 100%.
Love it. What does that mean for you?
That means that you can't go into anything, personal, professional, right, and expect anything.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go in with a heart of, how can I give this person something? Is it knowledge, right? Is it helping them with something? What can you do? It's not giving people money every single day, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go out here and start cutting checks.
Right.
But what can you do for someone? Because overall, someday is going to happen that you will have something where you get in return. I hope I don't get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
But like, if something happens, there's going to be a day where someone's going to go, oh, Jessica was super sweet to me, I'm going to go hang out with her son for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, something like that. Like, you have to know that in your business, you give people other things. I mean, I give people free policies all the time. They'll ask me free advice. I don't bill them for it.
Right.
You took 10 minutes of my life. I will help you.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're asking the right question.
Yeah.
You're not coming to take advantage of me. You know what I mean? Like, we need to stop thinking like, oh, they just want us for this. No.
Yeah.
Give.
Or just trying to gatekeep or paywall everything.
Paywall everything. I can't stand when I like see an article I want to read and then I can't read it. The clickbait life is not for me. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's really good advice, and I think that's I 100% agree with that. That's been my experience as well, is like trying to, like, if you give and you put things out there, then people are going to go to you because you're building trust and credibility with them, right? And so they're going to remember that in different ways and different avenues in life, whether it's personal or business.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on. What would you like to anything you would like to plug?
Plug.
Yeah,
Man,
plug.
So trendy.
Yeah.
Plugging. Can you say it like that? Plugging?
I'm not. I don't know if I'm
Like,
online enough to know the best way.
Well, my website is Jessica Hart, HART Consulting.com, of Hart Consulting. We have a bunch of stuff on there where I'm featured in different articles and different collaboration tools with different industry partners that people can go check out. I have a blog on there that I joke that it's like the stuff that you didn't learn in school from an HR perspective, and I share that on my LinkedIn.
You're a great follow on LinkedIn, so look her up and follow her. A lot of good stuff on there. I am once again with Flywheel Consulting. You can find me at flywheelconsulting.co and on LinkedIn, but I'm not as interesting as Jessica is. Thank you everyone for listening. Follow us wherever podcasts are found, and we'll see you again next week.